I don't know an intro yet, so we're going to go straight to after the intro. Maybe don't put an intro for this one. Who knows? Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sergio and I'm a commercial photographer here in Victoria, BC. And before I had this illustrious studio with a world-renowned career behind my back, just kidding, by the way, I have a hard time even saying that with a straight face. But before all that, I was just a kid with hope and dreams and desires to want more for myself, and mostly a general dislike for authority and anyone telling me what to do. I wanted to share a story that helped me be super appreciative of the path that I've taken and where I am now, even though I'm not where I want to be, and that there's always more that I want, and there's always, I'm always climbing this ladder. I do want to look back and see where I've come and what are those little decisions that have helped me become or carve this path as a photographer. I wanted to have more for myself, and if that sounds like something that you want, I want you to know that you're not just born into it. Some people are, but most of us aren't. I know I always had a hard time looking at other photographers online or other creatives or even reading books from people of the past and not necessarily finding a story that resonated with mine. So I'm trying to just add to the ether of photography stories that might exist, that might resonate with you, that make you not feel alone in this path, because there's so many unique ways to be a photographer or a filmmaker or a creative in general that it's hard to latch on to something that you can resonate with. This story happened back in 2014, I believe, and it was just like a run-of-the-mill party. I was at a house party with friends. So back then, I was a photographer that was just coming out of university, or maybe in my last semester of university, which means I had already been shooting for at least 3 or 4 years, which meant I was shooting cars, I was shooting friends, I was shooting a lot of anything I can get my hands on. I was shooting the rugby events at U Ottawa. I did a whole bunch of stuff. I was doing everything from Greek house parties to my friends' modified cars. I was just shooting anything I could because I was just gaining experience from it. I wasn't necessarily understanding at the time, but I realized over time that I was just building my network and growing the amount of people that knew who I was and thought of me when they needed a photographer, whether that was wedding clients in the future or people who had just installed coilovers on their car and wanted some fresh shots of it. So I'm this kid, I'm working at this craft that is not at all what I'm studying. By the way, I'm studying biopharmaceutical science with a majors in genomics at U Ottawa. Shout out to the late, great Alex Trebek, U Ottawa alumni. I knew that that's not something I necessarily wanted for myself, whether I was going to be working at it and doing photography on the side or just doing it to please my parents. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But really, I wanted to see the other options that were available to me. And photography was something that gave me this instant gratification. I was making people's day. It was fun to do something that, capture a moment that didn't exist or create something that didn't exist. All of these little things were giving me so much more joy than this science career. I'm not born in a family of artists. I'm not born surrounded by people who were creative and had a similar career path to what I'm currently on. So I could see if there were ideas that things that worked for them, that made they work for me, or how they got to where they were. I made those connections, but when I first started out, I didn't have anything. I was shooting, actually one of the biggest connections I probably had was through a gym buddy of mine, Ricky. I have some nice photos of him in my portfolio. He was working as a Sherpa for Moroni Films in Montreal. It was a wedding company. And just shooting, and I ended up getting a job with them as well. So just shooting weddings every weekend, and even if it was just carrying light stands, I was around people who were full-time photographers. And I realized, man, okay, there is a career path around this thing. Even though I didn't end up shooting weddings in the long run, I could still see what it was like to be a full-time creative, and I could ask some of these questions, and I could be like, okay, so maybe it's not all of us who are you're not just born with a camera in your hands, you're not born with clients that are clawing at wanting your attention, so it can be built, it can be grown. But this is, again, 12 years ago at this point. So here I am probably with a camera in my hands at this house party, back at my friend's house here, probably the first friend that had his own place. And we're just having an exchange, and he kind of brings up this idea of, celebrities, they're other people. They're things that just happen to them. It's not something that you can grow and become. It's people who are just born into it. It's people that they're a different breed. They exist on a different planet. He just said something to that effect, and I remember it taking me. I took it super personally. I took it like as if all of this work that I was doing to become a photographer was it for nothing? Like, does that mean that I can't be a photographer or something? Does that mean I can't be someone that I'm not born into? Do I have to continue this path of, okay, well, my brother's a microbiologist, so I guess I'll have to be a scientist as well? Or does that mean I can carve something for myself? And, all those ideas of doing it for myself, that I was building these last couple of years. I was maybe in year 3 of my 4-year rule. But on this path, I wasn't taking no for an answer. Like, it was already like a huge uphill battle, but I had the drive, I had the ambition, I had the fact that I was young at my disposal, let's say, at my advantage, on my side. And here we are, a buddy of mine who's like, oh, no, that's other people. You'll never, or maybe he wasn't attacking me personally, but I took it as I'll never get there because it's stuff that you're just born into. It's not that if you're older, you can't be successful. And if you're older than I am, let's say, and you're watching these videos, I know a lot of you guys who watch this are actually quite a bit older than I am. But it's not that you can't be successful or you can't find success in this career path or in this hobby. But what I think that played to my advantage as a younger person was that ambition, and that life just gets more and more complicated, and everything gets a lot tougher and takes a lot longer, and whether that's physical or your health, or that's the kids or grandkids, or that's just life gets more complicated. So when you're young and you have drive and mentality, and even if you aren't young in your head, or if you aren't young physically, if you're at least you're young in your head and you have that drive and mentality, hold on to it for as long as you can. Keep being a sponge and keep soaking up all that new information for as long as you can. And that's how you keep becoming more and more creative, and you can keep furthering this success path for yourself. Now, of course, I didn't necessarily listen to him, and I have, like I've said, a hard time listening to anybody telling me what to do. So if anything, I probably just used it as spite in order to further this career as a full-time photographer, or just become a full-time photographer. I don't even think if I had necessarily graduated university yet, so I was still working. I would come back to Montreal and then work a merchandiser job at Lay's, which, without being too much of a tangent, that is my ultimate dream client, would be a Frito-Lay contract, because it would be full circle for me of going back to one of my favorite first jobs to now working again with them in my favorite career position, I guess. Anyway, that's aside. It took this last 10 years to realize that, maybe you're not necessarily born into it, and you can have it a lot easier if you have all the connections, and if your dad is Cronenberg. But at the end of the day, if you put the work in and you try to create and you try to carve something that's unique to yourself, you will end up being a creative individual who will be sought out for the one thing that you can do, which is whatever it is that you come up with. But don't be a carbon copy of everybody else. Don't listen to other people's paths. Just try to understand that you're not alone in yours, and there are going to be other similarities around you, but that doesn't mean that you can't necessarily carve something unique for yourself that's going to give you all the success that you want. I'm not saying I'm at this end stage of my career and that I have everything I've ever wanted and that I am completely content with where I am. But I understand that I am higher along this ladder than I once was, and I have a little bit more confidence in who I am and what I'm sought out for, so that if I continue those things that I've been doing for these last 10 years, continue not listening to people, maybe eventually I'll be at this I don't know. Maybe I'll be at even a higher rung on this ladder. I can't imagine ever reaching a top. If you ever reach a top, it gets boring. I can't imagine. It must be very lonely at that top. Anyway, along stupid analogies aside, thanks for watching. Thanks for letting me ramble for another Thursday. If you got something out of it, hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on your way out. I'll see you guys on Monday. Sorry for this noise. They just decided to do construction today or something upstairs. I think they're taking out a cabinet upstairs. I tried to time it properly to have them not be here today, but they're decided to do construction on their off day. So it is what it is. Sorry again. I'll see you on Monday.